Hi guys, this is your girl Wakeji Kamore and welcome to Reflections by Wakeji Kamore. We are currently going through the book of 1 Samuel. We're doing this chapter by chapter. So it'll be nice for you to listen to the end because I'll be sharing my key takeouts from the chapter that we'll be reading today at the end of the recording. Also, remember to subscribe, to share this with someone else, and to click the notification bell so that you never miss any new recording. Today, we're in the book of 1 Samuel. We are going to be reading chapter 27, which I'm going to be reading from the easy-to-read version. So kindly follow through the story. It's actually a very short chapter. All right, let's read. So this is immediately after, David and Saul have parted ways. The first time that David had an opportunity to kill Saul and didn't kill him, Saul acted as if he is not going to chase David anymore. But as we read the last chapter, which was yesterday, we actually realized that Saul went again to chase after David. And David had another chance to kill him, but he didn't kill him. So David is in a state of, just like, this guy is going to continue chasing me or not? As in, what if one day he actually just captures me and kills me, All right, so let's read. This is where David is at mentally. All right, let's read. But David thought to himself, and he says, Saul will catch me someday. And the best thing I can do is escape to the land of the Philistines. Please note that the Philistines were the enemy of Israel, one of the biggest enemy of Israel. Sasa David amejiambia, one day this Saul guy will actually just catch me and kill me. So let me just go and hide in the land of the Philistines, because that's the enemy's land. He might not come there. Then Saul will give up looking for me in Israel, and that way I will escape from Saul. So David and his 600 men left Israel and went to Achish, son of Moab. Achish was the king of Gath. And David and his men and their families lived in Gath with Achish. David had his two wives with him, Ahinoam and Abigail. Abigail was a widow of Nabal. You guys remember her? People told Saul that David ran away to Gath. So Saul stopped looking for him. Well, kind of worked. So David said to Achish, if you are pleased with me, give me a place in one of the country towns. I'm only your servant. I should live there, not here with you in this royal city. That day, Achish gave David the town of Ziklag. And Ziklag had belonged to the king of Judah ever since. Let me repeat that, verse 6. That day, Achish gave David the town of Ziklag. And Ziklag has belonged to the king of Judah, the kings of Judah ever since. So David lived in the Philistines 1 year and 4 months. Right. David and his men went to fight the Amalekites and the Gerishites who lived in the area of Telem, near Shur, all the way to Egypt. And David's men defeated them and took their wealth. David defeated the people in that area. He took all their sheep, cattle and donkey and camels and clothes and brought them back to Achish. But David didn't let any of those people leave. So David did this many a times. Each time Achish asked king where he had fought and took those things, David said, I fought against the southern part of Judah, and I fought against the southern part of Jeremiah, or I fought against the southern part of Kenizzites. And David never brought a man or woman alive to Gath. He thought, if I let anyone leave, they may tell Achish what I really did. David did all this the time he lived in Philistine land, and Achish began to trust David, and he said to himself, now David's people hate him. Then the Israelites hate him very much, and now he will serve me forever. All right, let me tell you guys what's happening here. Still recovering, guys, still recovering. All right, so let me tell you guys what's happening. So David thinks in his head, one day Saul is going to find me. So let me go and seek refuge in the land of Philistines. So he goes to this place called Gath. And in Gath, there's a king, and the guy is called king of Gath is called Achish. So he lives there for a whole year and 4 months. And it actually worked because Saul stopped looking for him when he heard that now he was living in the Philistines' land. So after like 1 year and 4, like after he had stayed in Gath for a while, he went and said to Achish, "So you just give me a piece of land somewhere so that I don't stay in the royal city." And Achish gave David some place to live. In this place, it's called Ziklag. This place must have been far from where Achish is, because every time David would go out and fight against the enemies of Israel, he would fight against the enemies of Israel. This is why you need to note. So he would fight the enemies of Israel, Akina Amalekites, Akina Sijui Geshurites. You remember all those rights and tithes and whatever? So he would go and fight against them, and then he would kill all of them, and then he would take all their spoils, like their cattle, their donkeys, their camels, and he would never bring back person alive, because he didn't want any of those people coming to say exactly where he had raided. All right, let's take a pause a little bit there to say, why is he not bringing people back with him? Because he is raiding nations that are enemies of Israel. But when he comes back, he tells Achish that he's actually raiding nations that are actually part of Israel. Because these places that he's saying, southern part of Judah is a tribe of Israel. So he's basically telling Achish, I'm fighting against Israel. Like I've become a traitor, and so I'm fighting against my own people. But that's not what he's doing. And that made Achish trust him, because he's like, this David guy, clearly he has become such a traitor of the people of Israel, so they must really hate him because he's fighting against his own people. And he didn't know that this guy was actually fighting for Israel, because he was fighting the enemies of Israel. That's just brilliant, to be honest, brilliant. All right, so in this chapter, David and his 600 men decide to go and live in the enemy's territory and escape Saul's pursuit. So David has lived his life fighting against the Philistines, but now he has to seek refuge in this territory. And by doing so, King Achish has now started to think that David is a traitor to the Israel, and now he's allowed him to stay. All right, so the first sentence in this chapter tells us a lot about how David made this decision to go and seek refuge in the enemy's territory. So the first line reads, "But David kept thinking to himself." Or it says, David thought to himself. It says kept thinking to himself. Some version says kept thinking to himself or thought to himself. And that's how he made the decision that even though Prophet Samuel had told him and prophesied that he would be king, he still had these fearful thoughts. He kept thinking to himself. David was discouraged and tired of running from Saul. In the state of mind, he did not turn to the Lord, but listened to his own thoughts. And being in that pit of despair led David to seek protection from his enemy rather than from God. So how many times has that happened to us? How many times do you find yourself overwhelmed by fearful thoughts? I know I have, especially in this couple of the last months that we have. The first few months of this year, I've actually experienced a lot of fearful thoughts. And thoughts of how you will not make it out of your current situations, fearful thoughts of failure at work, failure in your business, failure at school, fearful thoughts of losing your job, your success, or even not being able to just make it in this life. And these thoughts have pushed you and I at some point to make a decision that is outside of God's will. So my question, or the reflection question is, what situation has caused you to feel afraid, to feel desperate, and to feel hopeless? You could be right there, you're unwell, and you're like, man, this situation is causing me to feel so afraid and so desperate and so hopeless. In these situations, put aside every self-talk that encourages you to rely on your own reasoning and effort. That would be my challenge. Put aside every thought, every self-talk that encourages you to rely on your own strength and effort. Because that is exactly what David did. He relied on his own thoughts, his own efforts, his own reasoning, and he ended up going out to live in the enemy's camp. Instead, turn to God quickly, because he's our only comfort and he's our only hope when days are miserable and hopeless. Pray right now about whatever it is that is causing you discouragement. Determine not to take matters in your own hands while you are waiting on God to act, but to rather to trust in his timing. This is your girl Wakeji Kamore, and this has been Reflections by Wakeji Kamore. See you tomorrow.